This control takes place through the Garbhodana Samskara. In India, there is a great agitation for birth control in various mechanical ways. But birth control cannot be mechanically controlled. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13.9, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosanadarsanam. Birth, death, old age, and disease are certainly the primary distresses of the material world. People are trying to control birth, but they're not able to control death. And if one cannot control death, one cannot control birth either. In other words, artificially controlling birth is not any more feasible than artificially controlling death. According to Vedic civilization, procreation should not be contrary to religious principles. And then the birth rate will be controlled. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.11, Dharma Vayudo Bhutesu Kamo Smi. Sex not contrary to religious principles is a representation of the Supreme Lord. People should be educated in how to give birth to good children through samskaras, beginning with Garbhodana samskara. Birth should not be controlled by artificial means, for this will lead to a civilization of animals. If one follows religious principles, he automatically practices birth control. Because if one is spiritually educated, he knows that after effects of sex are various types of misery. Bahu dukkha bhaja. One who is spiritually advanced does not indulge in uncontrolled sex. Therefore, instead of being forced to refrain from sex or refrain from giving birth to many children, people should be spiritually educated. And then birth control will automatically follow. If one is determined to make spiritual advancement, he will not beget a child unless able to make that child a devotee. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18. Pita nasa syat. One should not become a father unless one is able to protect his child from mrityu, meaning death. The path of birth and death. But where is their education about this? A responsible father never begets children like cats and dogs. Instead of being encouraged to adopt artificial means of birth control, people should be educated in Krishna consciousness, because only then will they understand their responsibility to their children. If one can beget children who will be devotees and be taught to turn aside from the path of birth and death, Mrityu samsara vartamani, there is no need of birth control. Rather, one should be encouraged to beget children. Artificial means of birth control have no value. Whether one begets children or does not, the population of men who are like cats and dogs will never make human society happy. It is therefore necessary for people to be educated spiritually, so that instead of begetting children like cats and dogs, they will undergo austerities to produce devotees. This will make their lives successful. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. 1 second, I have to fix my pencil here. Here, okay. Get another pencil. Okay. All right. So, if one is determined to make spiritual advancement, he will not beget a child unless able to make the child a devotee. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18, Pita Nasa Syat. One should not become a father unless he is able to protect his child from Mrityu, meaning death, the path of birth and death. But where is that education about this? A responsible father never begets children like cats and dogs. Instead of being encouraged to adopt artificial means of birth control, people should be educated in Krishna consciousness, because only when they understand their responsibility to their children, if one can beget children who will be devotees and be taught to turn aside from the path of birth and death. Mrityu samsaravartmani. There is no need of birth control. Rather, one should be encouraged to beget children. Artificial means of birth control have no value. Whether one begets children or does not, a population of men who are like cats and dogs will never make human society happy. It is therefore necessary for people to be educated spiritually, so that instead of begetting children like cats and dogs, they will undergo austerities to produce devotees. This will make their lives successful. Okay, so basically it's saying that one should not engage in illicit sex, but one should try to have children based on spiritual principles. If they simply have haphazard sex and then children are born and they're not really wanted by the parents, or the parents, in one way or another, they use different methods to stop having children. That's not really going to help having good uh, offspring. Text 34 and 35. My dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat, and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconveniences according to different seasons. By practicing pranayama to control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleanse your mind's all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful minds. Vasudeva purports, Vasudeva and Devaki did not obtain the Supreme Personality Godhead as their son very easily, nor does the Supreme Godhead accept merely anyone as his father and mother. Here we can see how Vasudeva and Devaki obtained Krishna as their eternal son. In our own lives, we are meant to follow the principles indicated herewith for getting good children. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to get Krishna as his son, but at least one can get very good sons and daughters for the benefit of human society. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that if human beings do not follow the spiritual way of life, there will be an increase of Varna Sankara population. Population begotten like cats and dogs, just having sex and without any, say, desire to have children. And the entire world will become like hell. Not practicing Krishna consciousness, but simply encouraging artificial means to check the population will be futile. The population will increase, and it will consist of Varna Shankara, unwanted progeny, unwanted children. It is better to teach people how to beget children, not like hogs and dogs, but in controlled life. Human life is meant not for becoming a hog or dog, but for tapo divyam, transcendental austerity. Everyone should be taught to undergo austerity, tapasya. Although it may not be possible to undergo tapasya like that of Krishna and Sutapa, the Shastra has given an opportunity for a method of tapasya, very easy to perform, very important point. The Sankirtana movements. What is the Sankirtana movement? It's chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra at least 16 rounds every day, but 16 is the minimum. There is no maximum. One can chant all day long if they want, but they have to at least do it 16 times. One cannot expect to undergo tapasya. Tapasya meaning controlling the mind and the senses, to get Krishna as one's child. Yet simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Kirtanad Eva Krishnasya, one can become so pure that one becomes free from all the contamination of this material world. Wow, what a wonderful statement that is. Mukta Sangha, and goes back to home, back to Godhead. Param Rajat. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is teaching people not to adopt artificial means of happiness, but to take the real path of happiness as prescribed in the Shastra. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. Okay, now this is a very profound statement. In other words, if people would understand the importance of Krishna consciousness and follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, there would be a whole society of saintly people. And why? Why? Because they're following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. They're not begetting children like cats and dogs. They are controlling themselves and having children by engaging in spiritual activities, controlling their mind and their senses, and chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, it says, but to take the real path of happiness, as prescribed in the Shastra, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. That is what we are advocating. That is what real Krishna consciousness is all about. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. Text 36. Thus you spent 12,000 celestial years performing difficult activities of tapasya in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness. That's a translation of text 36 and text 37 and 38. O sinless Mother Devaki, after the expiry of 12,000 celestial years, in which you constantly contemplated me within the core of your heart with great faith, devotion, and austerity, I was very much satisfied with you, since I am the best of all bestowers of benediction. I appeared in the same form as Krishna to ask you to take from me the benediction you desired. You then expressed your desire to have a son exactly like me. Okay, now this is Krishna speaking to Mother Devaki. Purports: 12,000 years on the celestial planets is not a very long time for those who live in the upper planetary system. Although it may be very long for those who live on this planet. Sutapa was the son of Brahma, and as we have already understood from Bhagavad Gita 8.17, one day of Brahma equals many millions of years according to our circulation. Wow. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Vidu. We should be careful to understand that to get Krishna as one's son, one must undergo such great austerities if we want to get the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become one of us in this material world. This requires great penance, but if we want to go back to Krishna, Jakva Deham Punarjanma Naitimam Eti So Arjuna, we need only understand him and love him. There it is. It's very, very simple. It's not complicated. Through love only, and that's important, very important. Through love only, we can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore declared, Prema Pumam Arto Mahan. The love of Godhead is the highest achievement for anyone. That's the truth. Love of Godhead is the highest achievement for anyone. As we explained in worship of the Lord, there are three stages: Jnana, Jnanamaya, and Rati, or love. Sutapa and his wife, Krishna, inaugurated their devotional activities on the basis of full knowledge. Gradually, they developed love for the Supreme Personality of God. And when this love was mature, the Lord appeared as Vishnu. Although Devaki then requested him to assume the form of Krishna. To love the Supreme Personality of Godhead more, we want a form of the Lord like Krishna or Brahma. We can engage in loving transactions with Krishna especially. In this age, we are all fallen, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bestow upon us love of Godhead directly. This was appreciated by the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami said, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gora Chase Namaha. In this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described as Mahavadanya, the most munificent of charitable persons. Munificent means the most, let's say, loving and easy to be engaged in spiritual activities. Because he gives Krishna so easily that one can attain Krishna simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We should therefore take advantage of the benediction given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when, by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we are cleansed of all dirty things, Chetodarpana Marjanam, we shall be able to understand very easily that Krishna is the only object of love. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha param bhajet. Therefore, one need not undergo severe penances for many thousands of years. One need only learn how to love Krishna and be always engaged in his service. Yes, there it is. Very important statement. Sevan muke hichiva do swayam eva spuradada. When one can very easily go back to Godhead, back home, back to Godhead, instead of bringing the Lord here for some material purpose, to have a son or whatever else. If we go back home, back to Godhead, our real relationship with the Lord is revealed. And we eternally engage in our eternal relationship. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we gradually develop our eternal relationship with the Supreme Person, and thus attain the perfection called Swarupa Siddhi. We should take advantage of this benediction and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura has therefore sung Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as an incarnation to deliver all fallen souls like us and directly bestow upon us the love of God. We must take advantage of this great benediction of the great personality of Godhead. So therefore it says, we should take advantage of this benediction and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakur has therefore sung Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as an incarnation to deliver all fallen souls like us and directly bestow upon us love of Godhead. We must take advantage of this great benediction of the great personality of Godhead. This is very important. Very, very important. Text 39. Being husband and wife, but always sonless, you were attracted by sexual desires. For by the influence of Deva Maya, transcendental love, you wanted to have me as your son. Therefore, you never desired to be liberated from this material world. There's something wrong here. Purport. Vasudeva and Devaki had been Dampati, husband and wife, since the time of Sutapa and christening, and they wanted to remain husband and wife in order to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son. This attachment came about by the influence of Deva Maya. Loving Krishna as one's son is a Vedic principle. Vasudeva and Devaki never desired anything but to have the Lord as their son. Yet, for this purpose, they apparently wanted to live like ordinary grihastas for sexual indulgence. Although this was a transaction of spiritual potency, their desire appears like attachment for sex in conjugal love. If one wants to return home back to Godhead, one must give up such desires. This is possible only when one develops intense love for the Supreme Personality of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Niskinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajano Mukasya Param Param Jiga Mishur Bhava Sangarasya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 11:18. If one wants to go back home, back to Godhead, one must be niskinchana, free from all material desires. Therefore, instead of desiring to have the Lord come here and become one's son, one should desire to become free from all material desires. Anya vilasita sunyam, and go back home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us in this Siksastaka, in his Siksastaka. Nadanam najanam nasundarim, tavitam va jagadishakamaya, amajanmani janmanishvare, bhavatad bhakti rahaitakitwaya. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. One should not ask the Lord to fulfill any materially tainted desires. Wow, that's an important statement. Text 40. Well, let's go back for a moment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us in his Siksastaka. Nadanam, Lajanam, Lasundaram, Kavitam Pa Jagadishakam. Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatat Bhakti Rahaitakitwaya. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after. One should not ask the Lord to fulfill any materially tainted desires. Very important. Very, very important. Text 40. After you received that benediction and I disappeared, you engaged yourself in sex to have a son like me, and I fulfilled your desire. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to the Sanskrit dictionary, Amara Kosam, sex life is also called Gramya Dharma, material desire. But in spiritual life, this gramya dharma, the material desire for sex, is not very much appreciated. If one has a tinge of attachment for the material enjoyments of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, one is not niskinchana. Niskinchana means without material desires. But one really should be niskinchana. Therefore, one should be free from the desire to beget a child like Krishna by sexual enjoyment. This is indirectly hinted at in this verse. Text 41. Since I found no one else as highly elevated as you in simplicity and other qualities of good character, I appeared in this world as Prishni Garbha, or one who is celebrated as having taken birth from Prishni. Purport. In the Tretya Yuga, the Lord appeared as Prishni Garbha. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur says, Prishni Garbha iti so yam, Treta Yuga Vataro Lakshyate. Let's see what that means. Okay, well, there's no translation of that. Text 42. In the next millennium, I again appeared before the two of you, who appeared as my mother, Aditi, and my father, Kashyapa. I was known as Upendra, and because of being dwarfed, I was also known as Vamana. Text 43. O supremely chaste mother, I, the same personality, have now appeared of you both as your son for the third time. Take my words as the truth. Okay, well, we will take your words as the truth. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead chooses a mother and father from whom to take birth again and again. The Lord took birth originally from Sutapa and Prithvi, then from Kashyapa and Aditi, and again from the same father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki. In other appearances, also, the Lord said, I took the form of an ordinary child just to become your son so that we could reciprocate eternal love. See how wonderful Krishna is. Jiva Goswami has explained this verse in his Krishna Sandarbha, 96th chapter, where he notes that in text 37, the Lord says, Amuna Vapusa, meaning by this same form. In other words, the Lord told Devaki, this time I have appeared in my original form as Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami says that the other forms were partial expansions of the Lord's original form. But because of the intense love developed by Prishni and Sutapa, the Lord appeared from Devaki and Vasudeva in his full opulence as Sri Krishna. In this verse, the Lord confirms, I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I appear in full opulence as Sri Krishna. This is the purport of the words Tenaiva Vapusa. When the Lord mentioned the birth of Prishni Garbha, he did not say Tenaiva Vapusa, but he assured Devaki that in the third birth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna had appeared, not his partial expansion. Krishna Garbha and Vamana were partial expansions of Krishna. But in his third birth, Krishna himself appeared. This is the expansion. No, sorry. This is the explanation given by Sri Krishna Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. Text 44. I have shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, you would not believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has indeed appeared. Now, that's a real statement. Purport. Devaki did not need to be reminded that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, had appeared as her son. She already accepted this. Nonetheless, she was anxious, thinking that if her neighbors heard that Vishnu had appeared as her son, none of them would believe it. Therefore, she wanted Lord Vishnu to transform himself into a human child. On the other hand, the Supreme Lord was also anxious, thinking that if he appeared as an ordinary child, she would not believe that Lord Vishnu had appeared. Such are the dealings between devotees and the Lord. The Lord deals with his devotees exactly like a human being. But this does not mean that the Lord is one of the human beings. For this is the conclusion of non-devotees. Avajanantimam mudha manasimtanam asritam. Devotees know the Supreme Personality of Godhead under any circumstance. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Lord says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, mad yajimam namaskuru. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances and worship me. A non-devotee cannot believe that simply by thinking of one person, one can achieve liberation from this material world and go back home, back to God. Well, that one person is Krishna, then for sure, just by meditating on Krishna, you'll be able to go back to God. But this is a fact. The Lord comes as a human being, and if one becomes attached to the Lord on the platform of loving service, one's promotion to the transcendental world is assured. Now, there it is. Very, very clear and profound. Text 45. Both of you, husband and wife, constantly think of me as your son, but always know that I am the Supreme Personality of God. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home back to Godhead. That's wonderful, wonderful verse. Purport: this instruction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to his father and mother, who are eternally connected with him, is especially intended for persons eager to return home, back to Godhead. One should never think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an ordinary human being, as non-devotees do. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally appeared and left his instructions for the benefit of all human society. But fools, sorry, second. But fools and rascals unfortunately think of him as an ordinary human being and twist the instructions of Bhagavad Gita for the satisfaction of their sins. Practically, everyone commenting on Bhagavad Gita interprets it for sense gratification. It has become especially fashionable for modern scholars and politicians to interpret Bhagavad Gita as if it were some fictitious, as if it were something fictitious. And by their wrong interpretations, they are spoiling their own careers and the careers of others. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is fighting against this principle of regarding Krishna as a fictitious person and of accepting that there was no Battle of Kurukshetra, that everything is symbolic, and that nothing in Bhagavad Gita is true. In any case, if one truly wants to be successful, one can do so by reading the text of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially stressed the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesha. If one wants to achieve the highest success in life, one must accept Bhagavad Gita as spoken by the Supreme Lord. By accepting Bhagavad Gita in this way, all of human society can become perfect and happy. It is to be noted that because Vasudeva and Devaki would be separated from Krishna when he was carried to Gokula, the residents of Nanda Maharaja, the Lord personally instructed them that they should always think of him as their son and as the Supreme Personality of God. That would keep them in touch with him. After 11 years, the Lord would return to Mathura to be their son, and therefore there was no question of separation. Okay, here it is. Text 46. Sukadeva Goswami said, after thus instructing his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, remained silent in their presence by his internal energy. He then transformed himself into a small human child. In other words, he transformed himself into his original form, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Sambhavami Atmamaya. Whatever is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is done by his spiritual energy. Nothing is forced upon him by the material energy. This is the difference between the Lord and an ordinary living being. The Vedas say, Parasya Shaktir Vividai Vashriyate Swabhavaki Gyanabala Kriyacha. Sutasvatara Upanishad 6.8. It is natural for the Lord to be untinged by material qualities, and because everything is perfectly present in his spiritual energy, as soon as he desires something, it is immediately done. The Lord is not a prakrita sisu, a child of this world, but by his spiritual energy, he appeared like one. Ordinary people may have difficulty accepting the Supreme Controller, God, as a human being, because they forgot that he can do everything by spiritual energy. Atma Mayaya. Non-believers say, How can the Supreme Controller descend as an ordinary being? This sort of thinking is materialistic. Srila Jiva Goswami says that unless we accept the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as inconceivable, beyond the conception of our words and mind, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Very important statement. Those who doubt that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can come as a human being and turn himself into a human child are fools who think that Krishna's body is material, that he is born and that he therefore also dies. No, Krishna is never born and he never dies. He's always existing. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 4th chapter, verses 28 and 29, there is a description of Krishna's leaving his body. Maharaj Parikshit inquired of Sukadeva Goswami. When all the members of the Yadu dynasty met their end, Krishna also put an end to himself. And the only member of the family who remained alive was Uddhava. How was this possible? Sukadeva Goswami answered that Krishna, by his own energy, destroyed the entire family and then thought of making his own body disappear. In this connection, Sukadeva Goswami described how the Lord gave up his body. But this was not the destruction of Krishna's body. Rather, it was the disappearance of the Supreme Lord by his personal energy. Okay, now that's the truth. Actually, the Lord does not give up his body, which is eternal. But as he can change his body from the form of Vishnu to that of an ordinary human child, he can change his body to any form he likes. Ah, there it is. He can change his body to any form he likes. This does not mean that he gives up his body. By the spiritual energy, the Lord can appear in a body made of wood or stone. He can change his body into anything because everything is his energy. Parasya Shaktir Vividai Vashriyate, as clearly said in Bhagavad Gita 7.4, Bina Prakritir Astada. The material elements are separated energies of the Supreme Lord. If he transforms himself into the Archa Murti, the worshipable deity, which we see as stone or wood, he is still Krishna. Therefore, the Shastra warns, Arche Vishnu Shila Dir Gurusu Nara Mati. One who thinks that the worshipable deity in the temple is made of wood or stone, one who sees a Vaishnava guru as an ordinary human being, or one who materially conceives of a Vaishnava as belonging to a particular caste, is Naraki, a resident of hell. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can appear before us in many forms, as he likes, but we must know the true facts. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata. Second, and by following the instructions of Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra, the saintly persons, the spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures, one can understand Krishna and then makes his life successful by returning home back to God. Okay, well, that means that we have to really spend our time trying to understand Krishna. But understanding Krishna is not difficult if we are following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. We will naturally understand who Krishna is because we're surrendered to Krishna with love and devotion and engaging in the devotional service of the Lord in the company of bona fide devotees. So we will be able to understand who Krishna is. Therefore, it says, by following instructions of sadhu, guru, and shastra, the saintly persons, the spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures, one can understand Krishna, and then one makes his life successful by returning home back to Godhead. That is our takeaway for today. By following the instructions of sadhu, guru, and shastra, the saintly persons, the spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures, one can understand Krishna, and then one makes his life successful by returning home back to Godhead. So there is, on one side, sadhu, guru, and shastra, saintly persons, spiritual master, and the authoritative scriptures. One can understand Krishna, and then one makes his life successful by returning home back to God. Okay. Let's see what time is it now. I think time is up. We'll do one more. Text 47. Thereafter, exactly when Vasudeva, being inspired by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was about to take the newborn child from the delivery, Yogamaya, the Lord's spiritual energy, took birth as the daughter of the wife of Maharaj Nanda. Purport. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur discusses that Krishna appeared simultaneously as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yasoda. Wow. Let me read that again. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur discusses that Krishna appeared simultaneously at the same time as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yasoda, along with the spiritual energy, Yogamaya. Yeah, no one can do this. Only someone who is on the level of Yogamaya, and nobody is on the level of Yogamaya. As the son of Devaki, he first appeared as Vishnu. And because Vasudeva was not in the position of pure affection for Krishna, Vasudeva worshipped his son as Lord Vishnu. Yasoda, however, pleased her son Krishna without understanding his godhood. This is the difference between Krishna as the son of Yasoda and as the son of Devaki. This is explained by Vishwanatha Chakravarti on the authority of Harivilas. Let me read that again. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discussed that Krishna appeared simultaneously, meaning at the same time, as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yasoda, along with spiritual energy, meaning Yogamaya. As the son of Devaki, he first appeared as Vishnu. And because Vasudeva was not in the position of pure affection for Krishna, Vasudeva worshipped his son as Lord Vishnu. Yasoda, however, pleased her son Krishna without understanding his godhood. This is the difference between Krishna as the son of Yasoda and as the son of David. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti on the authority of Harivilas. So we have on one side, well, not one side, we have Krishna appearing simultaneously as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yasoda, along with the spiritual energy of Yoga Maya. As the son of Devaki, he first appeared as Vishnu. And because Vasudeva was not on the position of pure affection for Krishna, Vasudeva worshipped his son as Lord Vishnu. Yasoda, however, pleased her son Krishna without understanding his godhood. This is the difference between Krishna as the son of Yasoda and as the son of Devaki. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti on the authority of Harivilas. Let me read that one more time. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses that Krishna appeared simultaneously, meaning at the same time, as the son of Devaki and as the son of Yasoda, along with the spiritual energy Yoga Maya. As the son of Devaki, he first appeared as Vishnu. And because Vasudeva was not in the position of pure affection for Krishna, Vasudeva worshipped his son as Lord Vishnu. Yasoda, however, pleased her son Krishna without understanding his God. This is the difference between Krishna as the son of Yasoda and as the son of David. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti on the authority of Harivilas. Okay, 1 second. And we're almost finished now. We're going to do one more. The text, it's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapters 3, text 48 and 49. By influence of Yoga Maya, all the doorkeepers fell fast asleep, their senses unable to work, and the other inhabitants of the house also fell deeply asleep. When the sun rises, the darkness automatically disappears. Similarly, when Vasudeva appeared, the closed doors, which were strongly pinned with iron and locked with iron chains, opened automatically, since the clouds in the sky were mildly thundering and showering. Anantanada, an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, followed Vasudeva, beginning from the door with hoods expanded to protect Vasudeva and the transcendental child. Wow, wonderful. Purport. Shesha Naga, the Naga means is a snake, not an ordinary snake, is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of God, whose business is to serve the Lord with all necessary paraphernalia. When Vasudeva was carrying the child, Sheshanaga came to serve the Lord and protect him from the mild showers of rain. Text 50. Because of the constant rain sent by the demigod Indra, the river Yamuna was filled with deep water, foaming about with fiercely whirling waves. But as the great Indian Ocean had formally given way to Lord Ramachandra. By allowing him to construct the bridge, the river Yamuna gave way to Vasudeva and allowed him to cross. Okay, that's a miracle. But it's because we're dealing with pure devotees that such things can happen. All right, we'll read one more and stop. Text 51. When Vasudeva reached the house of Nanda Maharaja, he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. Thus he placed his own son on the bed of Yasoda, picked up her daughter, an expansion of Yogamaya, and then returned to his residence, the prison house of Kamsa. Purport. Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa, Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friend. Oh, terrible. Nanda Maharaja was his friend, but out of deep affection and attachment for his own son, he knowingly did this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another's. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness since his actions were impelled by the force of Yogamaya. Wow. Interesting. Text 52, and then we'll end with this. What time is it?
It's 7:45.
All right, we'll finish. Wait, we won't go with the text 52.
Okay.
Okay, so are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams.
How do you go?
Maharaj, I have a question. Like in the previous verse, we hear that uh, Lord Krishna was born to Mother Devaki and Yogamaya was born to Yashoda Maiya. And it is not directly stated in the Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna was simultaneously born to Yashoda Maiya also. But our acharyas are able to uh, reveal that. How is that that the acharyas are able to reveal things which are even not even mentioned in the Bhagavatam is?
Are you saying that it's not explicitly stated?
Yes, it's not in the verse. It just says that uh, Yogamaya was born to Yashoda Maiya, right?
Yeah. It says here, let's see. Yogamaya, the Lord's spiritual energy, took birth as the daughter of the wife of Maharaj Nanda. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, Maharaj. But in the purport, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Lord was simultaneously born to both Devaki Maiya and Yashoda Maiya. So, how are the acharyas able to reveal that?
Second.
Because they, as I understand from some other sessions, I don't think with Maharaj, but somewhere, our acharyas who are the pure devotees, the Lord reveals from within heart a lot more detail than what was documented. So, they can see that from the, as Krishna also guarantees that for pure devotees, he reveals in full. So that's one of the explanations, at least I heard, Maharaj, that our acharyas are basically nothing but agents of Krishna to give more and more detail that connects the dots for us as the devotees. Is that right, Maharaj? Like, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came down, already Bhagavatam was there, that we should all be chanting the names of the Lord. But then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again had to come to reveal more detail and more specific instruction that all we need to latch onto is just the holy name, right? As a pure devotees, then everything, that's the essence of everything.
Well, that's a fact, yes.
Yeah. So in the same way, the other acharyas or the Guru Parampara expands on the same truth, because just like Goswamis know the heart of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they have further elaborated on the whole bhakti process, a lot more detail than what was there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should see all of these acharyas and Guru Parampara as expansion or the energy of Krishna that is revealing more and more truths.
Okay.
Right? Is that the right understanding?
Well,
They're all bona fide acharyas.
that's what an acharya does.
Correct.
He gives more and more knowledge. Otherwise, he wouldn't be an acharya.
Yes.
So Maharaj, I think Prabhuji covered. I think my understanding also same thing. Like, since they are coming directly from the spiritual world, they are not from this, right? So they have observed, they like whatever they have done, their experience, they are sharing it, because they are not our normal human beings like us. They are
Correct.
coming directly from the spiritual world, so it's there. They have experienced these things personally. Is that right?
That's right. Particularly our all our Guru Parampara are supposed to be manjaris in the spiritual world, which means that they have the revealing the actual direct truth. Right, Maharaj?
Well, they have to be, because they're connected to Krishna.
Correct.
If you're connected to Krishna, then you have all knowledge. If you're not connected to Krishna, that's another issue. But we're dealing with, Vasudeva, Nanda Maharaja, and Yogamaya, and Yasoda. So they're all, transcendentally existing. And they can engage in transcendental activities. They're not ordinary people. That's why it says, Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa, Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friend Nanda Maharaja. He had to kill the child of his friend. Nanda Maharaja was his friend, but out of deep affection and attachment for his own son, he knowingly did this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another's. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness, since his actions were impelled by the force of Yogamaya. Well, these are not mundane decisions. We're dealing with pure devotees, and therefore they might make decisions that seem to be calloused or not fair or whatever, but there is a reason, and that reason is gradually revealed in the Shastras. Therefore it says, Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa. Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friends. Nanda Maharaja was his friend, but out of deep affection and attachment for his own son, he knowingly did this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness, since his actions were impelled by the force of Yoga Maya. So there,
it's all orchestration of Yoga Maya. So
yeah,
Yoga Maya is the energy of the Lord.
that's right. So we cannot make mundane
conclusions.
This is on a much higher level.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Yes.
Maharaj, last December, the Jiva Goswami's lecture was given by Amrendra Prabhu. He was discussing on the Jiva Goswami's teaching, He was saying that Krishna is always there in Vrindavan and he is always part of that Leela, like he is always belonging to. He was saying that the summary what he was saying, Krishna is never born and he is always there in Vrindavan. That's what they were telling Maharaj. Like it is Jiva Goswami's Laksha. That's what I realized based on what they were explaining. But here, if I connect here, it's only Yoga Maya. That's where I also got a little confused, Maharaj. But in which Jiva Goswami's, if he is described as Krishna always belonged to Vrindavan, then I'm not little clear why Bhagavatam in this lokam they are talking about. I was a little confused, even me also.
So Prabhuji, it's simple. I mean, Krishna, in other places, he reveals that he never leaves Vrindavan. And we all know that Krishna, everything started with Krishna. So if both statements have to be true, what Jiva Goswami said is true, right? So this is why we have to accept the Acharya's words as they reveal. So if there are inconsistencies, those are actually in our mind. That means we're not seeing the spiritual world the way that Acharyas are seeing. So that's why it's Achintya Veda Tattva. Means like we, from our lens, we look at the words, but they are seeing the reality, and it's in dimensions that we cannot even understand. So I think we should not debate on these topics, frankly, and we should just accept the Acharya's words because they're also, repeated by Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhuji, I think it's not a question of not questioning. It's not a question of questioning the acharyas. It's, I think, the question is like,
what is the
Bhagavatam
principle?
Could have stated that same thing, right? Like,
I think see, it's the level of detail that it's like, when Krishna revealed Bhagavad Gita, he revealed only in 700 verses. Then Vedavyas expounded on Bhagavad Gita principles in Srimad Bhagavatam about 18,000 verses. It's still not complete. That's why we have parampara where they expand as they further reveal more and more truths. So that's how we accept this as a parampara. So just because Bhagavatam did not say it doesn't mean like it's contradictory. Bhagavatam revealed what at that time was necessary to reveal. Right, Maharaj? I mean, basically, I think the question is like in Shastras, there are always some, seem like contradictory statements, but Acharyas are the ones that reconcile some statements because they see the connection at a different dimension, because they're seeing the reality, the spiritual reality. That's why it's inconceivable for us. Sometimes why these statements, sometimes maybe are like why weren't they revealed? But
Well, look, we should not try and equate the activities of mundane people with the activities of transcendental.
Correct.
They're not on the same level. Just like here it says, Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa, Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friend Nanda Maharaj. He had to kill the child of his friend. Nanda Maharaja was his friend. But out of deep affection and attachment for his own son, he knowingly did this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness since his actions were impelled by the force of Yoga Maya. So this means that we are not dealing on the level of mundane activities. We're dealing on supernatural activities. Therefore, it's not the same thing. What may be considered as horrible in mundane life is not necessarily the same thing in spiritual life. So therefore, Vasudeva knew very well that as soon as the daughter was in the prison house of Kamsa, Kamsa would immediately kill her. But to protect his own child, he had to kill the child of his friend. Nanda Maharaja was his friend, but out of deep affection and attachment for his own son, he knowingly did this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another's. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness since his actions were impelled by the force of Yoga Maya. So here we're dealing with the force of Yoga Maya. So it is not an ordinary thing. So we can't equate mundane activities and spiritual activities. Otherwise, we'll make a big mistake. That's why it says, furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness since his actions were impelled by the force of Yoga Maya. That means that this is not a mundane, what you would say, mundane level. This is on a very high level, and it cannot be compared to something mundane. Therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one cannot be blamed for protecting one's own child at the sacrifice of another. Furthermore, Vasudeva cannot be accused of callousness, since his actions were impelled by the force of Yoga Maya. So we're not dealing with mundane activities here. This is way above the mundane level. And we have to accept what's being said or done. There are many things that we don't understand. That's why we have gurus and spiritual masters and Shastra to understand what is actually happening. Even though sometimes it seems very strange or difficult to understand, but if we continue to hear and chant, we will understand. So this is something that's difficult to understand because it says that Vasudeva reached the house of Nanda Maharaj. He saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. Thus he placed his own son on the bed of Yasoda and picked up her daughter, an expansion of Yogamaya, and then returned to his residence, the prison house of Kamsa. So that means what? That means that his son is that Yogamaya, an expansion. No, that means that he placed his own son on the bed of Yasoda and picked up her daughter, who was an expansion of Yogamaya. So that means that the daughter who's going to be killed by Kamsa is not an ordinary person. She is completely transcendental, and she's not actually going to be killed. It might look like that, but it's not.
I think it's about 8:05, Maharaj.
Huh?
It's about 8:05. We'll wrap up for today because there's some. So we'll wrap up. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
I think